Hi, and welcome to the fourth part of my series on the guitar playing heard behind Little Walter on his chess recordings. And what I'm trying to do is give you some ideas, help you build a vocabulary of licks and fills and chords and bass runs and things that you can play behind a harmonica player in the style of the chess recordings of the 1950s and 60s. Took a look at Sonny Boy Williamson's playing, and now we're focusing on Little Walter. And in this next lesson, we're going to look at some single string runs and fills and also turnarounds. And this will be the final lesson in the series. And starting out, when you listen to Little Walter's recordings, you hear a lot of single string runs and fills. And if you listen carefully, most of them are played out of a first position E. So, for instance, there's a lot of capoing going on with the first and even the second guitars on the Little Walter recordings. So what we're basically doing is playing out of an E chord. So I put a capo on the first fret, which will have us playing out of an F, which several of Little Walter's better known tunes are played in. That's the key they're played in. And with the capo, it allows you to do a lot of fills and runs with open strings. So for instance, you might hear something like this. And real simple ideas. And you can do an infinite number of fills and runs, and you'll hear so many different variations of these things. So what I want to do, instead of teaching you note for note, the fills used in certain songs, I just want to show you the ideas and give you some examples of what I'm talking about from specific songs. So in the key of F, if you make an E chord, I do mine with two fingers like Lightning Hopkins. That's from playing acoustic guitar a lot. You can also put the ring finger in there too, but my first finger. And basically you're going from the third to the second frets and then open on the first two strings. And that's part of what you're doing. And you can do the same thing on the third string. So that's a little run. You've also got this, the first fret of the third string, which oftentimes you'll hear them doing a little hammer-on pull-off trill type thing. So you've got that. Then you've also got the bass note. So on the second fret of the fourth string, open, fourth string, second fret of the fifth string, open. Sometimes you go to the first fret of the fifth string. So you hear something like this with a bass fill or turnaround. And that's open. Then you go into the third fret of the sixth string. You can do all kinds of stuff. But those are basically the positions. The notes that you're going to use. Now every now and then he'll throw in something else, which I'll try to show you a couple examples of it. But for the most part, those are the notes that he's using. And also when he does these fills and turnarounds and things, he'll also do a lot of hammer-ons, pull-offs, and even some like quick picking and things to give it some variety, some bends. And I'll show you a couple examples. First of all, there's a tune called Mean Old World, which is one of Little Walter's most famous tunes. And the song, I'll just kind of play part of the verse and then show you where the turnaround or the fill comes in. So the tune starts out in F, a shuffle. At this point you're going to get the fill, and he's going to go to an F chord. He does something like that, which is just an F chord played up here on the 13th, 14th frets. And then he does this fill, so he does something like this. And then what I'm doing, open second string to the third fret of the third string, slight bend, back to the open second string, then the second fret of the third string, then the first fret of the third string with that little trill. You could throw in the open first string. So there's a little fill that you'll hear. So the whole thing. And then you might throw another fill in there too. So a lot of times he'll use these single string runs in between verses. So the song continues. Then at the one, he might do something like that. This is just going from the third to the second fret of the first string and then open. So something like that. And then the turnaround. And this leads us to another idea, which we'll get to in a little bit, which is playing over the 4 and the 5 chords. So a lot of these fills and turnarounds are just playing out of a first position E, up or down here on the neck. So that is an idea that you'll hear a lot. Now the variety of these fills. So for instance, the one I just showed you, sometimes he'll do this and just stop it. In another place on Mean Old World, he does something like this. So he plays the bass notes and makes the fill a little bit longer. So I'll play that again. So it's open or hammer on the second fret of the first string, and then third fret, second fret, open on the second string. And that bend on the third fret of the third string, and then the open second string. And then the second fret of the third string. And then hammer on the first fret of the third string. So the whole thing, let's take it from there. And then to the second fret of the fifth string. He's going to walk, open, fourth string, first fret, second fret, fourth string, and then right back to that third fret, or first fret of the third string. So that whole fill lick. Might throw the seventh in there. But there's another idea of this kind of thing. Now when we get to the turnarounds, I'll show you a bunch of different variations on that. But if you listen to the Little Walter stuff, a lot of times he'll use, or the guitar players will use these single string runs as fills. One interesting idea there is this, and this is a fill lick that we'll hear some more when we get into the playing of Jimmy Rogers. But a lot of times you listen to it and you think he's playing this. So this is kind of a second fret of the third string, and then open, second string, back to the second fret of the third string. But if you listen carefully, he's playing this. Kind of that odd moaning sound. Sounds a lot like a country blues lick, like something you'd hear in Charlie Patton's playing. So the whole thing. Pretty simple idea. So there's an example of a single string fill type thing. Now there's some other ideas that you hear the guitar players behind Little Walter use when they're playing fills. Now if you listen to the recordings that he did for Chess, most of the fills are played in that E position, and a lot of the turnarounds too, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Some other fills, just a couple other examples, and these examples I'm going to show you here have something in common. They both are played over the chords in kind of the moving chord tradition, what jazz players would do. So a lot of blues players will stay in that blues box. So if you're playing in the key of E, they'll stay in the blues box for E. They won't move and play over the A or the B or any other chords in the song. But on the turnarounds, and also going from the 5 to the 4 to the 1, then a lot of times you'll hear the guitar players on Little Walter's recordings playing over those chords. So for instance, if we're going from the 5 to the 4 to the 1 in the key of F, so I've got a capo on the 1st fret, playing in F. Sometimes you'll hear this run. Before he goes to the 1 or the turnaround. So all I'm doing, here's my 5 chord, my first position bar chord, that is a C chord. And what I'm doing is starting on the 10th fret, I'm going to ignore the capo. And we'll do the capo. So we're playing on the 9th fret. Get confused on that stuff. Going from the 9th to the 7th fret on the 1st string. Then I'm bending on the 9th fret of the 2nd string. Bending. And then bringing it back down to the 10th fret, or the 9th fret of the 2nd string. So. And then the last part of that phrase is from the 7th fret of the 2nd string to the 8th fret of the 3rd string. So. And he plays it really fast sometimes. And then, when the song moves to the 4, which is the B flat, just move that chord shape here and play the same thing. Or you could do this. And end with that little phrase. Then go to the turnaround over the 1. So that thing again. And you can vary that. You can hold the notes a little longer, play a little faster, do all kinds of things with that. So you hear that when he's going from the 5 to the 4 to the 1. Sometimes just over the 4. So if the song is in the 1, goes to the 4, you could play that. Just play it as a fill over the 4. And so that is something you hear in a few of Little Walter's recordings. You also hear it in the Sonny Boy Williamson recordings too. Another idea, kind of the same thing, playing over the chords, is a lot of times when his songs go to the 4, you'll hear something like this. So let's say we're still playing an F, and the song goes to the 4, you'll hear this. Something like that. And we heard this in the Sonny Boy Williamson stuff too. So the song, let's take a tune like Mean Old World, we're playing an F. So when that song goes over the 4, you could play back to the 1. A lot of times you'll hear it when he's going from the 5 to the 4 to the 1. So in a song in F, we play the 5, which is that B7 shape, which is now a C7. Something like that. So one of those licks. So let's break that down. All I'm doing is, here's the 4 chord, the B flat. I'm taking a double stop on the, sliding my 2nd finger from the 5th to the 6th fret of the 3rd string, and then winding up with my 1st finger on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. Then I'm doing this chromatic run from the 3, 4, 5, from the 7th to the 6th to the 5th fret on the 1st string. Then we're coming up to the 2nd fret, 3rd fret. So it's it's 3rd fret, 1st string, open, and then hammering on twice on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, open, 1st string, 2nd fret of the 2nd string, open, 1st string. This is just one variation of this. If you listen carefully, he'll take that same lick and add different things, take out things, play it differently. So, but that's the idea. So you're going from the 4 chord to a turnaround, something like that. So that is another idea. And you can actually do this over the 5 too. So you could play the 5, something like that. Now a lot of times on the Little Walter stuff, when the song gets to the 5, there's a chord involved. Usually that 7th shape, B7, and then the fill comes over the 4. Like that. That's something you commonly hear in the Little Walter playing. So there's some fill ideas. Again, most of what you hear with the fills is played over the E shape. First position, E shape. Stuff like that. Things like that. And you just have to listen. Now there's also a lot of single string bass runs that you'll hear. So things like, and that is also something that's played as fills as well. And again, it's out of that first position E. If you listen to old-time acoustic playing Lightning Hopkins, a lot of his ideas you hear in these electric blues players.